Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch Transfer Roundup. Okay, so this one is actually rather short compared to the recent ones we've done. It's only one column long and there aren't that many moves, and the reason for this is because, well, we are in a contenders season in Korea right now. We are in full swing in NA, EU and across the other regions. The Overwatch League window has shut, so the Overwatch League teams can't actually make any moves now apart from really specialised moves. So it's probably going to go a little bit quiet in terms of transfers for the next... I mean, in the Overwatch League, it's going to go quiet for a good few months, probably, until the end of the season now. And then in Contenders, it's going to be probably until the end of this Contenders round or Contenders season. So it's not going to be massively active. Anyway, we have got some moves to talk about, first of all in China and Cosmos Veritas Gaming. So this is actually an interesting one because they're going to come up a lot during this video. This is them letting go of 3 players. This is the Chinese support player Devil's Will, the Korean tank player Maggie, and the Chinese DPS player Later. They are all leaving Cosmos Veritas Gaming. Then they are bringing in 5 players. This is the Chinese support J1 check them Angs. The Chinese DPS player Pluviofil? I honestly don't know. Korean DPS player Smiley, Korean tank players Yeo Noah and Restless. They're all coming in at Cosmos Veritas Gaming. Then they're letting go of their team leader, who is Zhao Zero. He is Chinese. And to replace him, they are bringing in Chao Ye. I don't know whether I'm saying that right, but he'll be coming in as team leader for Cosmos Veritas Gaming, but we'll be coming back to them a little bit later on. So we also have another move to talk about, or moves I should say. This is Innocent Revolters. I'm not quite sure which region they are. I had a feeling they were Chinese region, but I can't find them. And they are letting go of 5 players. This is the Korean support player Troy, the Chinese support player Verd, the Chinese player SHD, the Chinese DPS player Estrella, and the Korean DPS player Zenmin. They will all be leaving that team and they'll be bringing in 3 new players. This will be the Korean support player Raindrop, the Korean DPS player Uena, and the Chinese DPS player Later. So they'll all be coming in 2 Innocent Revolters, and I wish them all the best. I have heard of Innocent Revolters before, I just can't find them in any region. I think they're Chinese region though. So moving to Korea then, and we have some moves at World Game Star Phoenix, a team pretty high up in the echelons of Korean contenders right now. This is them bringing in their Korean support player Simple, and this is because they are letting their current Korean support player Doby move from that playing support role to becoming an assistant coach at the team. So I wish him all the best as he goes forward into that role, and I'm sure Simple will be able to pick up the spot he left in that team. But now we have a new team to look at in North America. They'll be currently competing in the Trials, or no, they'll be Open Division at the moment. This is a team called Infamous, and they are bringing in a new roster to try and get into Trials for North America. This team is consisting of mostly Americans, so I'll say otherwise, but the support player Switch, the support player Kitty King, the flex player Sai, the tank player Akash, the DPS player Cohesion, and the Korean DPS player Toxia, or Toxia? I think that's how you say it. And they will all be coming into that team and competing in Open Division of Season 4 of Open Division now in North America, I believe, and I wish them all the best. Now, we saw some moves at Revival in the last transfer roundup, notably Aspen moving over to Team Doge, so they are going to bring in some players to replace the spots that have been left at Revival. This is the Italian support player Freo. We have seen Freo before, especially in the European region. The British tank player Specs, not to be mixed up with Smex of the Paris Eternal. It's Specs, S-P-E-C-S, and the American DPS player Boat. They will be coming into Revival to replace the spots left in the last video. Revival, they're kind of up and down, and we'll see if they can push on. They're struggling to kind of put any success together right now. They're kind of muddling around in Trials, and we'll see if they can push forward into the main contenders tournament and try and get a little bit of success going. Then we have 2 coming in at Triumph. This is 2 Korean players actually. This is the support player Vigilante and the tank player Off. They are both coming in at Triumph. Again, Triumph have seen a lot of changes in recent times, with a lot of their players being poached by different teams. So I kind of hope that they can find some consistency with this new lineup, and hopefully they can push on in contenders as well. Also in North America, we're seeing 3 players come in at Malibu. This is the Korean support player Baxin, the American tank player Maximus, and the American support player N2S. They will all be coming into Malibu, a relatively new team in the North American scene, and they will see if they can do well in this current contender season. Now, we do have a sort of move in the Overwatch League, and a sort of move. So we know that the Guangzhou Charge, especially some of their players, have been having some visa issues while competing in that Asian region. We know that Neptuno has gone home, and he will not be featuring for them, but we didn't know too much about the DPS player Nero and how he was doing. So he was inactive on the Guangzhou Charge roster, but he has now been moved to active. So this is a very interesting development for the Guangzhou Charge, especially as we are heading into the overall playoffs for the Overwatch League season. Nero was known as a fantastic flex player for Guangzhou Charge last season. He's been fairly unable to compete this season, and it's going to be really, really nice to see him back if we do see him feature for this Guangzhou Charge roster. The only issue for that is this Guangzhou Charge roster is now the second seed in the APAC region. They've been really settled of recent times. Maybe they just want the unpredictability that Nero could offer to their DPS lineup, but it's going to be interesting with Eileen and Happy. So this could be also a reaction to where the meta is going for the overall playoffs, where we will see the current patch that is on live servers for Overwatch, where, you know, we're not seeing much in terms of main tank. We're seeing more Roadhog and stuff like that. Maybe Nero has a really good Roadhog that Guangzhou Charge want to take advantage of. So this is going to be a very interesting development, I think, and it's going to be, I think it's indicative of what we might be seeing towards the playoffs. And yeah, definitely interesting, but I would suggest that Nero is definitely swimming with the Guangzhou Charge if he's been made active once again. Now, I did say we were coming back to Cosmos Veritas Gaming in China, and this is unfortunate because this is them straight up disbanding just days after they messed around with their roster. So they are releasing their entire roster. This is the Korean support player Carnival, the 2 Chinese support players Memory and Jiang, the Chinese tank player Tamaki Ako, the 2 Korean tank players Yunoa and Restless, the 3 Chinese DPS players RMM, Kitten and Pluviophile, I don't know, and the Korean DPS player Smiley. They will all be leaving Cosmos Veritas Gaming. Cosmos Veritas Gaming will no longer be competing because I believe they have now disbanded. And we never like to see a team disband. I think that's pretty evident, and we will see what happens with their spot in China. And yeah, there's not much to be saying about it, but I hope these players are able to find other teams in good time. Also, we have another move in North America. This is Triumph once again letting go of their coach Nomi. Now, we know Nomi from being a tank player for the San Francisco Shock way back when. It's quite a while ago now, years, you know, inaugural season sort of years. But he's been a coach at Triumph for a while. He's no longer with Triumph, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. There's definitely a shake-up going on at Triumph. They want more success. They're bringing in these 2 Korean players that we mentioned earlier, and now they're jiggling around with their coaching staff. And we'll be mentioning another one coming up a little bit later on as well. But we have some stuff to talk about at Gen.G. So Gen.G currently, you know, competing in the top echelons of Korean contenders. Gen.G have many academy teams. Many academy teams. They have Gen S, Gen A, and Gen B. And if you're a London Spitfire fan, you will know that because I believe Sanguinar came from Gen A. I believe Although came from Gen S, or that might be the other way around. So, you know, there's a few players in the Overwatch League now that have come from the echelons of Gen.G's support system and their academies. But this is completely internal movements at Gen.G. So this is 4 promotions from Gen A to Gen S to Gen.G, sorry, the main Gen.G roster in Korean contenders. So this is going to be all Korean, obviously. This is the support player Papadog, the tank player Won Soo Min, the two DPS players Top Dragon and Ezhan. They will all be moving from Gen A, the academy team of Gen.G. It gets confusing, I know, to the main Gen.G roster to bulk up that Gen.G roster in the Korean contenders scene. And we've seen some movements like this from Element Mystic as well in recent weeks, where they promoted a few young players, and it really did actually work out quite well for Element Mystic the other day, as they did get a 3-1 victory over Runaway in the main contenders season in Korea. So this may be a move to not so much mirror that, but a move in light of perhaps some of that evidence. But we have another coaching move. This is at Far East Society. They're preparing for a tournament in the Pacific. Kaneki, the French coach, he was a strategic coach at False Alarm Korea and a micro coach at Far East Society. He will no longer be with that False Alarm Korea team, and will just be that micro coach for Far East Society, concentrating on that role only. And this may be a move because of the Pacific thing coming up, and I wish him all the best in that. And the last thing we have to look at is, remember I did mention another Triumph move. This is the American coach Empress moving from their assistant coach role at Triumph to a head coach role at Square One. So he's just jumping ship with teams. This means 2 coaching roles have been vacated at Triumph, and I am expecting those roles to be filled pretty soon, but it won't be in this transfer roundup because that is where we're ending for this one. It's been a rather short one. It meant we can go at a bit of a slower pace instead of me talking like a flipping caster in the Overwatch League, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But it's also allowed us to take a little bit of more of a delve into some of these moves. But it should be really interesting. I'm actually really interested to see what Guangzhou Charge are going to do with Nero now he's available. That's going to be super interesting. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.